Hey, Alex.
Hey Jordan, how's it going, man?
I'm well, thanks, brother. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's beautiful
Good.
Sunday.
Nice.
Doing another Sunday recording. How's your day been so far?
So far, so good, man. Up nice, coffee with the missus. It's been a smooth day. Nice, chill,
Nice. Awesome.
chill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
man.
week so far.
Yeah. Definitely can't complain. Yesterday was 12 degrees here. It was really warm, but very, very windy, but still really nice out.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not nearly as warm here, but yeah, we've had some good weather too. All the snow has melted, so it's
Yeah.
been a lovely winter so far.
I wouldn't say it's been a lovely. It's been fairly cold here actually, but yeah, we've had a reprieve the last week or 10 days.
Nice.
Yeah, December was snowy and cold, so yeah. Yeah, how about
That's
you? How's
awesome.
your week, man?
It's been a good week. It's been busy. It's been fun. It's been exciting. Yeah, work was hectic. And then obviously we launched our first episode of the podcast last Wednesday, which was exciting. Um,
Uh, yeah, I just want to say thanks to anybody, watching a second time here. Thanks for your support. We're very happy with the, sort of the initial success and feedback, and definitely look forward to, seeing more of everybody and a lot more feedback and discussion.
yeah, no, I posted a little quick video the other day, just kind of thanking everybody. And again, yeah, everybody that took the time to just respond to us and give us some feedback, but also the people that took the time to listen and, and share our posts and everything. Yeah, blown away by the feedback and our first week. It's been fun and exciting. And yeah, it's just makes it more exciting to keep going and do some more episodes and keep getting to know the community better.
Well, and what's really, encouraging is that people that we sort of follow, respect, and admire in this space, tell us we've done a good job. So that's encouraging and exciting as well. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in, checking it out, and just giving us a chance because there is a lot going on in this space.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing but content. I mean, you and I are always watching stuff. So there's a lot of people doing stuff and a lot of great content. So we're just going to keep plugging away, just keep trying to get better. And we appreciate all your support and liking and subscribing to everything. So yeah, it's been great. Looking forward to getting into this episode too here.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
What you talking about? It's time for the show right now. Alex and Jordan break it down from the bezel to the crown. Every second counts, no doubt. What you talking about?
Hey, man. What's on your wrist today, sir?
Oh, all right. Okay, I'm going to start, and I'm going to try my best not to get emotional here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're going to do this today. So here, I'm going to get into a quick story. And I'll post a picture during the edit of this for you YouTube viewers. But today I am wearing my Citizen Proximity. It's a W760. This watch came out in about 2012, 2013. And as much as it's going to be hilarious to say my next statement after all of our talk about smartwatches last week and what's a real watch, this watch was actually designed with Bluetooth connectivity so that it can connect to your phone. An iPhone is what it was designed for, and give
Right.
you some stats and some information, but also to help set your time and everything. The
Okay.
reason I'm wearing this one today is a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, we just lost my father-in-law, and this was his watch. And I'm honored enough to be the owner of this watch currently now. And so I wanted to wear this just to honor him today and kind of share the story and share this beautiful watch. I've never owned a Citizen watch of my own, and I've got two of his. So yeah, I take great pride and joy in wearing this watch. I don't wear it a lot. I kind of try and save it for some special occasions. Um, it's a beautiful watch. It's a big watch, which I'm a fan of a big watch, even though I'm trying to get into the smaller stuff. But yeah, it's just it's a special piece to me. Obviously, we always talk about the stories behind a watch, and
So
as far
it's
as
just
I'm concerned,
super windy and dusty in my
yeah,
house.
and as far as I'm concerned, watches like this, the stories don't get much better than that. So it's an honor to me to be able to go to my watch box every day and get to see, not only my own dad's watch, but also my father-in-law's watches beside it. So today I'm wearing my Citizen in honor of Scott.
Pretty pretty cool story. Okay. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a touch emotional.
Yeah, we both are. That's why I'm trying to hold it together.
Yeah. Well, especially when it comes to my friends, Yeah, today on my wrist, I am rocking the, it's like I say, it's hard to get the good wrist roll on here, but yeah, I'm rocking my Hamilton khaki field, bronze with the titanium back. It, this is one of my favorite watches. It was my 50th birthday present for my amazing wife. It's just a great little piece for me. I absolutely love it. I took it off the OEM strap and right now have it on a Christopher Ward antique oak, I think they call the color, and it's actually a really, really, really good strap. I definitely would definitely say that Christopher Ward builds a fantastic watch strap. There's actually even a little tether on the inside to stop the second buckle from kind of floating away and going off the tab. Like there's a little piece of fabric in there that tethers it. So, just a little thing like that I'd never seen before. We're talking about these watch strap designs, and then you see Christopher Ward, and it's just like, at first I looked at it and thought, oh, did they forget to cut that off? What is it? And I looked at it for a second and I was like, it took me a minute to realize what it actually was. So yeah, if you can see this little piece there's a piece of fabric that holds that from going up any farther than it is right now.
I love that so much because, yes, as we talk about little things, and as I sit here, I'm constantly adjusting the second loop on this strap. And that makes me crazy. That makes me crazy that they're always like floating around and never really staying where they need to be.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you probably can't see it on the camera really, but there it is. Kind of see it poking out right there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, it's it's a great strap, great watch. And actually, I mean, Christopher Ward and I went through a real ordeal to get this strap actually. So as you know, I have a Christopher Ward 12 titanium and I ordered the rubber strap for it. And when I got it, it just didn't fit right. Like it you either had to wear it so the stick out of the watch band was on the inside of your wrist, which I found, caught on my shirt and I didn't like the way it wore. If you put it on so the stick out was on the outside like it is here, the side on the 12 o'clock would actually pop off the pin, like it wouldn't actually hold in place. So, Christopher Ward was very gracious. They took that one back, sent me another one. And I paid another $25 in customs. And for that one was the exact same. So obviously it's meant to fit one way and a way that I didn't think it worked properly. So I sent that one back again. And the only strap, they just said, okay, pick another strap. Obviously this isn't going to work out for us. And so I picked this strap out, which was a little bit less money. And they also have the new Christopher Ward book out. So I said, okay, can I get the strap, the antique oak strap, and then I'll just pay the difference and buy the book as well. And so they actually said, don't worry about the extra money. This has been, enough grief for you, Mr. Clark, that we'll just, whatever the price of the band is and whatever's left on your credit, it will make it work and just give you the book. So they shipped me the watch band and I received that, paid another $25 in customs. And then the book never came. And so kind of over the holidays, I was going back and forth with Joseph at Christopher Ward, who's absolutely fantastic. Nothing negative to say about any of this on Christopher Ward's end, really. And so finally here, about a week ago, I get back a hold of Joseph and say, hey, when's this book going to ship? I haven't seen it yet. And the book was in Calgary within 2 or 3 days after that email. And I paid another $25 in customs. So, I mean, Christopher Ward on a customer service and really did bend over backwards to try and make sure that I was satisfied with my purchase, which I can't say enough about in today's day and age. Having said that, this did become a fairly expensive exchange on my end as well as theirs. So I think, as far as everybody I don't think anybody made any money on this deal. I can say that pretty safely. So, thanks Christopher Ward for, really going out of their way to help a guy out and make sure that, so I do own 2 of their watches and I'm a big fan of the brand for sure.
Yeah, you definitely are. You're the one that introduced me to them as well a couple of years ago. That is a brand I hadn't heard of. And that's a great story. I love to hear the customer service. Unfortunately, paying some taxes and duties when it comes into the country doesn't help. But
yeah, I think that $145 watch strap ended up costing me about 200 and change. But
yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm happy. They're happy. And then what was cool is, as you know, that this beautiful white book I received from Christopher Ward, I was cool enough to splash chocolate protein shake all over it within 10 minutes of opening the box. So that was cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you wanted to talk about what happened on Thursday night.
I was so disappointed. You've waited so long.
I've got pictures.
So long.
I'll add them during editing to this video. And so if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or one of the podcast platforms, you might have to hop over to YouTube to see
Yeah.
Jordy's brand new, beautiful
Yeah.
white Christopher Ward book.
Well, and I'll have to send you another picture of the handprint. I didn't realize was on the back of the book until later, because I had, protein shake running down my face. So I was smart enough to wipe off my face and then pick up the white book. So that was, that's.
That's so good.
And the whole time I just have Joe Dirt in the back of my head going, "I'm cool."
I love it, man. That's so good. That is so good. I only laugh because we've been friends a long time and I know I can laugh at you. But I kid you not, like when you told me what happened and sent me the pictures, like that is me to a T. Like that is 100% something that I would do, that would happen to me. I would get something brand new. And dude, I do that stuff all the time. It is so funny to me because it's just like, yep, it's funny because I'm like, that's 100% what I would have done. 100%.
And of course, it's not some nice glossy covered book. Like it's a nice cover. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say it's not nice, but it's not like a glossy cover, something that I could just wipe off the shake. It has this kind of white. It's a white textury, almost like a denim feel to it. So there's no I took a cloth, wiped it, and it like zero change, no pickup of the dirt. Like that, it was just a mess.
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing, because it is a nice book. It's not just a glossy cover or something that could just be wiped off. Like it totally, soaked right in. Maybe we need to ask our podcast listeners if anyone has any tips on how to get stains out.
How do you get stains out of your book covers? Well, even my wife, actually, because I'm a disaster and I have those Tide stain pens because I'm a mess anyway. And she's like, I wonder if some Tide pen would get that out of there. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to leave well enough alone on this, I think.
Stop touching my $200 book.
Oh, my gosh. That's only $90, sir. The strap was $110.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
that is a really nice strap, though. I just want to add that in. That is a really nice strap. It's not, obviously I'm just seeing it over camera, but it looks beautiful. I like it.
And the truth is, when I put it on the watch, the watch I've had for 3 years now, I'm 53. And so it had tarnished quite a bit. There'd been a fair amount of patina on the bronze. So I put the strap on and I thought, oh no, like it's, the strap's too light for the watch. Then I spent another, I don't know, probably 2 hours or so polishing the watch so it would match the strap a little better. Because, anybody that's really into bronze watches is actually probably having a heart attack right now that I polished my bronze watch. But,
Yeah.
But look how pretty.
But I do feel like there's kind of people are a little bit on both sides of that. Like I do feel like I do see people that do like to keep them polished, and some people love the patina. I have a bronze watch now that, oh man, I don't even know how long I've had it now. 6, 8 months, 10 months. I don't know. I'm gonna let it go and see what happens with it.
Right.
So because I've never had a bronze watch, and I don't really even know what it's gonna do. So we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely have 3 bronze watches. No, I have 4. Sorry. And 2 of them I kind of let patina, and 2 of them I keep polished. So like my come on, Jordan, my Quadical and my Zelos Hammerhead, I let those 2 patina, and then my Zelos Sky Raider and this one I'll keep polished. Oh, I just lied. I also have a Zelos Swordfish in bronze that I do keep polished as well. Yeah.
Beauty.
So.
I know that watch. I like that watch.
Yeah, with the meteorite dial. I think that's one of Elshan's kind of more understated, unsung heroes of his collection was that Swordfish in bronze 38 millimeter, right? Which this is 38 millimeter as well. I don't have a huge wrist, but I mean this watch just to me wears absolutely perfectly. Like it's just such a nice, nice and thin. Like you can actually, even the camera does actually pick up how thin that is.
It is.
I apologize as I sit here salivating over my own watch.
It's what it's all about. Isn't that why we're here? I mean, it'd be kind of a weird podcast if we were like, hey, here's my watch. It's fine. What else do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about bicycles.
It's funny that 38 mil looks really good on your wrist. And I think my wrist is maybe a little bit bigger than yours. But, you kind of mentioned it last week on the show, like that I've always been a fan of big watches. And I used to be a much larger man than I am now. gone through some weight loss and over the years, and I'm a little bit smaller, and it took some time for me to get used to wearing smaller watches. Now, I will say I have not gone below 40 mils yet.
Right.
I'd bounce around. I toss around the idea of looking at 38, 39 mil watches, but even I struggle. Like when I got my Zelos, the first thing I said to you was, I'm so in love with it. I wish it was bigger than a 40 mil. I wish it was 41, 42. And you're like,
Well,
dude, it looks so good on you. And here I am all these months later, and it's probably the watch I wear the most.
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is, I look at even I have that 35 millimeter Winnie the Pooh watch, and it's so thin and it's so tiny, but when you put it on, even though it's a Winnie the Pooh, $35, just a fun watch. When you put it on, it's just when I look down, I don't think, oh, that's really undersized on my wrist, right? When I look down at it, I just smile, and I think that as you and I were talking on the last show about vintage watches, when you get into those vintage watches, when you get into those, your birth year watches in 1972, or people want to jump in the Wayback Machine and go back to those 50s and 60s, those watches at their large sizes were 34, 35 millimeter, very thin, very elegant, because that's what the style was then. So there's part of me that says, if I want one of them kind of vintage watches, I better get used to, try on some 36 millimeters and whatnot, just to see how they feel and wear.
Yeah. Well, I have that conversation with myself every time because I'm always looking at vintage watches too. And even to find something from 1972 ish,
Yeah.
like is it like I'm, if I put in my search criteria that I want, 40 millimeters or bigger, the results is such a low number. But if I'm willing to go down to like a 36 or 38, so I keep telling myself, like, I gotta start exploring that, because if the watches that I keep looking at from 1972, the ones that I look at and want, and then I see the size of them, then I'm like, oh, then I'm at that crossroads of not understanding that I can wear a smaller watch.
Well, and who I think, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but I watch him. He does a watch drop every Thursday, and oh, come on, Jordan. And anyways, he's a fairly thick-wristed individual, and so he'll try on those like 35 millimeter Patek Philippe Calatravas and things like that, and they look great on his wrist. But of course, he's an English guy, so an accent always makes it look better. Tweed jacket. He always is dressed real sharp, but he's got a fairly thick wrist, and you see a 35 millimeter on, and I don't think it looks out of place. Like for what you're used to seeing, people are going to be like, oh, that would be a small watch. But if you just seen it out, I don't think you'd think that's small watch. You'd be like, ooh, man, that's a nice little, Calatrava.
Mm-hmm. Well, because when I see somebody wearing a watch, I'm not ever going like, oh, that's too small, that's too big. I'm just going, ooh, what is that? So
exactly. Yeah,
I'm
subdial. That's
I'm the one that's overthinking it.
Yeah, well, and that's you look at most people, and this is the thing about watch nerds. We're literally the only ones looking. Do you know what I mean? Like, if somebody notices your watch, you already know that that's a watch person. Before you have any more of the conversation, the fact they may take a second to comment or staring at your watch, that's all right. You already know that's a watch person, because 9 out of 10 people aren't even going to glance down at your wrist. They are probably half of them don't even know you have a hand.
True. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, because if you're not a watch person, you're not looking. Like everybody that's walking around, not to go back to this, but if you're wearing a smartwatch, you're probably, because I know when I wore one, I didn't really notice people's watches as much. Even though I've enjoyed watches all my life, I'll be honest, I didn't notice as much. I noticed smartwatches. Oh, what smartwatch do you have? Being an IT guy and being an IT nerd and, loving technology, it was about comparing, smartwatches then. But yeah, it's I agree with you. If you're not into watches, you're probably not looking.
Okay, so then here's the question: when you compare smartwatches, and I'm not hacking on smartwatches again today.
Here we go again.
We'll come back to that later. But when you compare smartwatches, would it be almost like tech envy when someone had like kind of the latest and greatest, where you'd be like, ooh, I have to, I need that too?
100%. 100%. Dude, like you got the new Samsung or the new Garmin, like, and I'm like 2 models behind. Oh, that killed me. That killed me. What are you talking?
Okay.
Because you don't want a vintage smartwatch.
Doesn't carry the same cachet.
No, it's not the same. A vintage automatic watches, vintage Seikos, vintage Swiss watches. There's no
That's funny.
such, vintage smartwatches
Yeah.
are recycled.
Yeah. When they show up your smartwatch, like, oh, not even supported anymore.
Right. Yeah. Doesn't hold a charge longer than 10 minutes. You're welcome. Yeah. Like and that's the thing, right? The batteries don't hold a charge long anymore. And,
Okay.
and they get slow, and then there's new apps released, and there's this and this and that. And yeah, it's just like a laptop. It's like any piece of technology, right? They get outdated and it gets replaced.
Even, like I say, last week we railed pretty hard on smartwatches, and, we don't get into the negative parts about how much it costs. Like my friend dropped his, Tag Heuer Carrera here not that long ago, and it cost me $100 just to get it sent away. And then the repair, he needs the watch repaired, service, new crown, gaskets, $525 plus GST. Right. So that could buy him another watch. So, last week when we're sitting here railing on smartwatches, I leave out the fact like, oh, by the way, if you buy an expensive chronograph, it's probably going to cost you $1,000 to get that thing serviced in 5 years.
Yeah. At $1,000, like you're buying a really nice Garmin smartwatch.
Yeah.
Like a really nice one.
Yeah. Next year's, not even this year's, next year's model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So to be fair to the smartwatch people.
It is funny. So that was a lot of the people, the feedback we were getting was, man, you guys really went hard after the smartwatch, people. And, even our friend, Rich that we mentioned on the show last week, he's like, I'm sitting here listening to your show wearing my Garmin smartwatch, and I feel personally attacked. And we called it. We knew that would happen, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's funny, and it's, and again, like, yeah, we sat there and said the whole episode, like, we're not going to go after this, and we got going on it, and that's just the way you and I are.
Yeah. We stomped a mud hole in smartwatches and walked it dry last week. Yeah. It was, and here's the thing. First of all, anybody that's watching that likes their smartwatches, I apologize, because one of the cool things about Alex and I doing a podcast is we're generally going to speak to each other like there's nobody else in the room. We'll clean up their profanity for for mass consumption. But at the same time, so last week, what you saw was just Alex and Jordan having a raw conversation the way we would speak if nobody else was listening. Yeah. So, I would probably say, if I had that episode to do over again, I don't think I would want to come across as negatively as we did on smartwatches, because they do have their place. I appreciate people do like them, so yeah, I apologize to the smartwatch people out there, because we went a little hard in the paint on that one.
We did. And it's funny, because the one thought I kept having was like, I love that people wear watches.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, for me to sit there and say like, oh, you like bronze watches? I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so good for you. Oh, you're wearing a smartwatch? I don't wear smartwatches. Okay. You know what? The fact that people still wear watches, like, the more I kind of thought about it, it's like, it's something like, yeah, it's technology, and yeah, it's connected and everything. But, I still appreciate that people are still wearing watches, and, and appreciate the technology and everything. So yeah, it was kind of funny. And that's, a lot of people busted our chops over that. So that was,
yeah. Well, one of the things is, I have friends that do wear smartwatches, but they also, if they're coming out with us, they'll switch out their smartwatch and put on something different. And they'll tell me right out, I put this on for you, right? So nice. Whether or not you realize it, you do have some influence on your friends.
Yeah. Oh, any other thoughts, feelings, opinions, comments on last week's episode? If you want to add to, or would have done differently, said differently?
Nope, I think that's it.
I don't. Perfect.
Yeah,
I don't think we did too much talking out our asses or anything. So.
No, and like I say, we did go a little hard on a smartwatch, but at the same time, I mean, we've definitely established where we stand on that, and I think it's fair. We probably don't have to cover it again.
Yeah. And yet here we are.
Yeah. Well, I think this was more of an apology segment. That, totally. I don't want to I don't want to alienate people. I want you to do what makes you happy ultimately at the end of the day. So, if that, the thing is, if you have a smartwatch, and this is nothing negative, if you have a smartwatch, you're probably not tuning into this, because we are never really going to talk about smartwatches,
Probably not.
Especially, so we'd never sit here and just crap on them for an hour.
Yeah, it was only 30. 30 minutes or so.
Ouch.
All
Yeah.
right.
So on to
All
the
right.
next thing. On to the next
So,
thing. So it's
so
been actually.
yeah, what's
Go
got you
ahead,
hot
man.
and bothered in the watch week this world? Anything new that's catching your eye that is on
Well,
Jordan's shopping list?
Well, not necessarily on my shopping list. There was two big releases this week. I think really a really cool one was the Teddy Baldassarre collaboration with RGM,
Mhm.
and wow, sorry, the new Omega Speedmaster moon watches that came out, one in solid gold and one in stainless steel. Very nice watches all around. That Teddy one, we both talked. If you're not familiar with Teddy Baldassarre, he's probably maybe the biggest name in the watch space. And started out as a YouTuber, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years ago, and is now to a point in his career where he's millions of followers and doing collaborations with some pretty serious watch companies.
Yeah. And I don't want to chase people away to sort of cut you off here, Jordan, but
Yeah, no.
if you don't know who he is, don't stop here to keep going with our show. But as soon as we're done, you need to go find him, because if you're listening to us and not watching him, you might be doing it wrong.
Yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Anyway, sorry to go back to you.
I mean, Teddy really is, to make the comparison, Teddy would be like the Joe Rogan in the watch space, really and truly. I mean, he's inspired a lot of people to start watch podcasts. So, I mean, he did a collection with Brew that you and I talked about that was really nice. But this new collection with RGM, who's an American watchmaker, which I think it was important for Teddy to do that. It's a masterpiece. It really is a work of art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful watch. Yeah, I'll be honest, and I think the one thing that people will start to understand about us and why maybe this podcast is fun for us and talk, it's not just our conversations of watches being recorded and shared with everyone, but I mean, as these things are happening and Jordan and I are getting ready for this podcast, I'll be honest, this is where my lack of knowledge is, where I'm still learning. And so I come from maybe a more of a novice perspective and opinion, whereas Jordan actually has, way more knowledge, and I'm constantly learning from him.
Yeah.
So, I'll keep saying it. I love a good deal. And when I look at this price point, I'm like, there's not enough things on this watch for me. I want more complications for that price point. And then you start explaining to me what I'm missing and what, my novice eyes don't always necessarily see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on this watch, one of the things that is hard for people to understand is what goes in to something called guilloche, which, if you don't know what that is, it is basically a really, really fine lathe that can etch patterns into, things as small as 38 millimeters in diameter with multiple etch patterning, herringbone pattern, hatchbone patterns, wave looking dials. So the amount of craftsmanship that goes into a watch like this is it's absolutely unbelievable. To me, it is simply probably going to be one of the greatest releases in 2025. If I don't want to oversell it, but I mean, what this watch is on its own is just absolutely fantastic with the guillotine and the movement in the back, the decorating on the movement. Not to get way too nerdy here, but this is a very serious piece of watchmaking. Teddy has outdone himself. The price point, like you say, I want to say 13,800 American is, I'll use the word staggering. But at the same time, if I was in that market, et cetera, I would have no problem, parting with that money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful watch, and this is obviously personal taste. I'm not a massive fan of small seconds.
Right. So I'm trying to bring up a picture of that watch, not going the way I'd hoped.
That's okay. Yeah. That's my one thing is, like, I think it's a beautiful watch, and my thing is I'm not a fan of the small seconds necessarily. It's something that I don't know what happened. Somebody actually made a comment to me. My wife's stepdad, he's into vintage watches, and he actually fixes them and buys and sells them, and one day we're going to have a chat with Joe on movements. But he made a comment to me one day, and he kind of explained his theory, and I'll let him share that with everyone one day. But I don't know. I like a second hand on a watch. So that's for me, I think the biggest thing that this one doesn't hit for me, but that dial is lights out. Like
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Well, and the thing is, me being a complication guy, you saying you don't like small seconds. One thing about producing watches, it's actually easier to produce a small seconds watch than a center hand second watch. There's some work that has to go into the gear trying to make a second center hand seconds. So, whether you realize it or not, you just admitted you like complications, Alex.
Well, and that kind of goes back to it, right? Like I do like complications. I think like I don't mind a busy watch. I don't mind a watch that, a chronograph. I like the moon phaser. There's a lot of different complications I'd like to have on a watch.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think, yeah, like I said to you, like for me, and again, it's my novice, eyes kind of looking at this. I just look at it and go like, I want more.
Yeah.
But I also am able to come from the perspective now. I've seen enough watches over the last few years. I've gone, further down many rabbit holes to also look at this and go and see the beauty and understand the work that goes into producing a piece like this.
Well, and again, we're looking at, at the front of the dial. And when you talk about guilloche and what's called a rose engine machine, we're talking literally, I think if I use the word dozens of people on the planet that can do this well, that you'd call, kind of artisans at it. When you think in a world of 7 billion people, we're certainly not talking in the hundreds of people that do guilloche, right? We're talking, probably 100 or less people in the world doing this thing, because these machines were actually going obsolete. They were something. So anyways, that's an entirely different conversation. So when you see the guilloche and understand the artisanship and how many people can actually do it, then you factor in that the movement, and here's where I start getting, I fell down a rabbit hole, is okay, that's a cool watch, but what's operating it? And then I did fall down a rabbit hole with a movement with a watchmaker called Shorts Etienne, and they make their own watches, but they also make movements for other manufacturers. And the finishing on their movements is absolutely fantastic. 86-hour power reserves, micro rotors, which if you don't know what a micro rotor does, it winds the watch, but it's set into the movement, so it doesn't add any thickness, where an average rotor on an automatic watch adds thickness to the movement. So it's really, these are literally the engineering at its highest point to be able to fit what they're doing into a 40 or 38 millimeter wristwatch. But then the artisan of it, so Etienne Schultz Etienne does their own finishing, and then they hand it off to RGM, who then level up the finishing, doing their own perlage on the back plates and stuff like that. So it's a wristwatch, but it's also, like you say, it's a work of art. It's not, so, do I look at that watch and necessarily see $13,800? Well, of course I don't, because I don't have $13,800. I have, $13,600. So I just can't afford this watch.
Yeah.
It's just a touch out of my price range.
Yeah, right.
Mine is $13,600.
Yeah.
So
I've got the $600.
Yeah. So it's not to go off on a tangent, but it's really, when I see a watch like this is what makes me excited about watchmaking is, I get excited when I see a $35 Winnie the Pooh watch, but then I see something like this where we're talking serious engineering, serious finishing, and you can see it. I just get excited. Like,
yeah,
I like it.
And I do feel the same way, and I don't want any of my comments to come across as negative, because I do get excited too to see the level of craftsmanship. And I talked about, I'm an IT guy. Really quick about me, like when I finished high school, I went and became a CNC machinist. So I was a machinist for a little while in my life, right? So when I see stuff like this,
weren't you a stripper first? Didn't you do some stripping? The initial,
yeah, but I kept getting paid to leave. That's how I made my money.
Sorry,
keep your clothes on and go.
I knew there was something between high school and CNC. I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, it didn't last. So I understand the level of craftsmanship, right? I get it. Like I know what it is, but yeah. But is that a watch that I'm looking for? No, but that's fine, because it's, that's the beauty of this hobby. Something for everyone.
Well, and I think what's cool about this watch is, Schultz is a European movement maker. They're not American, but you've got Teddy Baldassarre, who's as American as I get, from Cleveland, Ohio. Then you have Roland RGM, who's, I want to say, based in like Allentown, Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? Like one of these Americana cities from old. So if you're looking for true American craftsmanship and true, American artisanship, this watch would mean, I think, a lot more to somebody like that than it would to you and I. Having said that, it's a absolutely gorgeous piece, and congratulations to Teddy on releasing something like that, because, you and I are getting in with, we're getting in with pretty humble expectations, and I'm pretty sure there wasn't a day when Teddy sat back and launched his first video thinking, someday I'm going to launch a watch that's going to be in the $15,000 American price range and be at the highest end of horology. Like, I just, he probably didn't imagine.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Like it's
dare to dream. It's congratulations to him. It's a beautiful piece. Excited for him. I'm sure it's going to do very well.
Yeah, I would imagine it's sold out before it, as soon as that, he's one of those guys that his name carries enough weight, and then you factor that with a watchmaker like RGM, that chances are that watch sold out before anybody even knew it was launched. If that makes, like, it's,
Good point.
Yeah.
You want to talk about those new Speedies a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Omega, as much as I love Omega, I'm a fan, but they're really beating the Speedmaster space to death, the Speedmaster Pro. The new Speedy, I don't know, it's pretty expensive. Like the new one in their gold. I'm not going to get into all the specs and fancy names. Let's just call it gold. That watch, I want to say, is rolling in somewhere around 35,000 American for a Speedmaster. And it's one of those things, like, it's a great watch, but who asked for it? It's kind of, my opinion on that. I really like the Speedmaster. Don't get me wrong. That's something, hopefully someday I'll find, probably a neo vintage previously enjoyed, just to try and knock some off that hefty price tag that they come with. But I mean, the new Speedmaster, I think, it's a really cool watch. The truth is about Speedmaster, I think last year they released 5 or 6 new different Speedmasters. So to tell you the truth, I'm even at the point, like, I read all the specs on it a couple of days ago and watched some reviews, and now I can't remember which Speedmaster, which specs came with, or which, do you know what I mean? Like it, I've kind of lost track, because they just released those new Gray Side of the Moons about 2 months ago. So Omega's really, they're beating the market over the head with Speedmaster releases, I think, especially the Speedmaster Pro Moon watch, which, again, iconic, quintessential watch, one of those watches that says, people say if you're a collector, you have to have one. But I don't know, man, is there enough in this watch to make it? I think they've got it listed again. I think it's running in around 10,000-12,000 American in stainless steel. So it's, do you really want it that bad, or do you want to, look that really nice white Speedmaster Moon watch that's absolutely gorgeous for, 8,000 American? It's, they're starting to really climb up there in price too, Omega.
Yeah, they're getting expensive. I'm a big fan of the white one for sure. I mean, the one thing about me is, like, I love, don't get me wrong, I love the Speedmaster. It's a watch I'd love to have, would put one in my collection in a heartbeat. I'm also, and this is how I've always been, I'm always the type of guy that it's like, I love that, would love to have one, but everyone has one. Like, and I think that's what I love about Microbrands is I've always been the guy that goes against the grain. Like, whatever's popular, I'd like to find the thing that's, still really cool, but maybe not as popular. And I don't know why I'm always like that. I've always been like that my whole life. And so when I see these watches, there is a small part of me that's like, I love it, would love to have one in my watch box, but also I like to look at something and go, hey, have you ever seen this? And be like, no, never seen that watch in my life. And to a watch guy, when I meet a watch guy and he's never seen the watch I have, I don't know, that tickles my fancy.
Well, and I mean, that is cool. And that's what's even the cool thing about watches in general, is kind of introducing each other to stuff we've never seen or heard of or thought existed, or if you did know, you've never seen it, what I'll call in the wild. And one of the coolest experience I had in watches, which was the polar opposite of the experience I had yesterday at the Omega store here in Calgary. I was down in Miami, my wife and I, and we went to the Omega store there and met with a guy named Rennie. and he was an absolute fantastic ambassador for Omega. He spent so much time with that in that store, with us in the store. You know, he went in the back because he had a white Speedy, but it was for somebody else because they were still that new. You know, they weren't being allocated quite as quickly yet. And so, you know, he brought it out, let me try it on, you know, and just spent so much time that day. I happened to be wearing a Christopher Ward Bel Canto. And after a little while, I talked about the Omegas and, you know, showing me the, you know, the Olympic editions and the rose gold, you know, with the rose gold Milanese bracelet. It was absolutely stunning. He asked what was on my wrist. And so, you know, I took it off and handed it to him, showed him, and he'd never seen anything like that. You know, what's this brand? What's this watch? And I said, oh, it's Christopher Ward, British watch brand. And, you know, we finished our time with him, and he was a super, I mean, what a gracious guy. And when we walked out of the store, one of the last things he said to us was, and I'll make sure to check out Christopher Ward. You know, he was really impressed with that. So, you know, here's a guy going out of his way to show me, you know, his $10,000 watches, and we were having such a great conversation about it. And then, but he's also interested in this, you know, micro brand I have that, you know, he's never seen before. What is it? Where can I find one? How can I find out more about it? So, and that to me is what's, you know, that's watch enthusiasm at its finest right there.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Well, and it's fun when you can turn somebody on to something new, right? I mean, I don't know, maybe that's part of it for me, is I love to be that guy that gets to introduce somebody to somebody or something new that they've not seen. I get a kick out of that. So,
well, there's always something new and exciting in the watch space, right? And I mean, especially there's so many, you know, one of the things, well, I guess there's one other thing I'd like to kind of take back in a comment I made flippantly about Bulovas, like, oh, if you want to go find a Bulova in the mall, that's nice, but let's see what's out there. And that came across a little bit glib because, you know, I would have a Bulova Seville, a quartz thing that operates at 262,000 hertz. I mean, that's a really cool watch. So I don't want to, you know, sound like I'm just pissing on all these watches that aren't micro brands. I'm just saying when we get in a certain price range, just really shop around and see what's out there. And so, you know, when I look at a lot of the micro brands, they're so, especially when it comes to dials. I mean, you can only really do so much with case shapes and finishes and things like that. But when you look at what each micro brand can do with its dials and the ideas and the creativity and things like that that go into their dials, that's what I really like about micro brands. I mean, a lot of them don't play it safe, right? A lot of them are, was it here not that long ago, Elshan at Zealous released a watch that was, he could only do so many of them because he had a piece of an airplane engine. I want to say a Mustang from World War II. And it was so corroded, he could only use so much of it to make dials, but he was using a piece of an old airplane to make watch dials, right? Like, yeah. I'm sorry, but generally Rolex, Omega, you know, they're not making stuff like that.
No, 100% not. Yeah. It's funny that you bring up Bulova because you and I have talked about them in the past, and just I'll add my 2 cents on this. It's definitely been a watch that is not, or a watch brand that was always on my radar. I don't see a lot of them, and I'll be honest, the ones I see locally in my stores here are probably not the nicest models.
Right.
There's a guy that I do follow on Instagram, and, you know, he did listen to our episode last week, and we had a really good chat about, and he wears a lot of Bulova watches. Like, that's the main brand in his collection. And I have to tell you.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I tell him all the time. And I, honest to God's truth, like, every day he's posting a Bulova. It's like, holy, I didn't know they made that watch. I didn't know that existed. He's got some gorgeous watch. He was just telling me
his Bulova collection's awesome. Like,
it's insane. Fantastic. Yeah. Wade, if you're listening to this, like, man, like, for sure, for real, like, for sure, every watch that I comment on, he was just telling me last week, and I'll probably get my facts wrong because that's what I do. But he, you know, this watch came out in like 2017, and he's been chasing it for years, and he just got it a year or two ago. And I'm like, I've never seen a Bulova like that. And I have to say, like, finding his account on Instagram, like, opened my eyes to a brand that I wasn't looking at that I knew of. So all these brands that we're trying to discover, that is a great thing, but it made me look back at a brand that I knew it existed my whole life. Just wasn't one that I'd ever seen something that drew me into it. And now I find myself online going, oh, I like that Bulova. Oh, I really like that Bulova. And they make good watches. There's nothing, like, it's, you know, there's no argument there, the quality of the product.
Yeah. Well, and, like, I work with 3 guys that wear a lot of Bulova, between the 3 of them. And so that's what actually sort of started to change my attitude was, you know, I look at these guys' watches and you look like, you know, and I don't care what watch it is. I'll look at almost every watch and see something that I would have done differently. But I also look at these watches and say, like, price point wise, like you say, they're high quality watches. They're Bulova's owned by the Citizen Group, so they're getting tried, tested, and true movements. They've got different finishing quality or completely different style than Citizen. So to me, they're a really good intersection between, sort of Citizen, Seiko. Bulova's doing their own thing. Their high beat quartz movements are super cool. What I find, a little disappointing, and this is, you'd have to know a little bit of the history, is if you've ever heard of an Accutron watch, and they were one of the first, they weren't a quartz watch, they were an electronic watch, and they were originally a Bulova watch, and then they split off and went under their own name. And I think it would have been cool for Bulova to be able to keep the Accutron line under their umbrella, but the history of Bulova, they're a cool watch, and so I came off a little glib last week, and I definitely don't feel the way it sounded when it came out of my big fat yapper.
Well, and like we said earlier, or like you mentioned earlier, right? These are the conversations we have, and and I think what I'm hoping is what people get from the show is, like, we kind of talk about watches the way guys talk about watches. Like, we're two buddies that have known each other for 20 plus years, and sometimes you're gonna just like, I'm gonna lay a little smack talk on something just because in the moment it's funny or whatever, right? Like, I mean, let's be honest, half the time our conversations are just about trying to get a bit of a rise out of each other or get a laugh out of each other, right? If I know Jordan's worked up, Jordy's worked up, I gotta poke that bear.
Yeah, like yesterday, you should go record something right now.
You were pretty worked up, baby. You wanted to go lay down instead.
Yeah, I needed a nap. Okay, I'm going to share an experience.
I was going to say, I feel like you need to share this story.
Well, I don't want, what'll happen is that with time, kind of the small details, even though it's a relatively quick story, will fade. In my city, Calgary, Alberta, they opened a new Omega boutique in one of the shopping malls. To me, one of the cool things about opening anything in the shopping mall is exposure and traffic. It's you're not a standalone store downtown Calgary. You are in the mall, in one of the higher end malls in the city. You should expect a large amount of foot traffic. And so, and to tell you the truth, this place is maybe 200 steps from one of the bigger authorized Rolex dealers in the city as well. So there's a lot of competition in this mall, and so I was very excited to go in. I love a boutique. I love Omega watches, so I was really excited to go when I heard it finally open. So yesterday, actually, I had a bunch of errands to run, and I centered my morning around going to this Omega store and stopping in there. And kind of didn't tell my wife until right before we left that, oh, by the way, we're going to the mall you hate, just so I can go to the store. Not to buy anything, but to really look around. And per se, I always say I'm never going to buy anything. And so, but when I get to the store, there's, I can see a couple people inside, and then there's a red velvet rope across the door, and what I'll call a bouncer stand, a well-dressed bouncer standing there. And there's some people off to the side looking at the watches in the window, and so I say to the guy, can I come in? And he says, well, no, you can't come in. There's only 2 people working today, so there's already 2 customers in the store. So if you wouldn't mind waiting, you can come in when they're done. Well, as somebody that's bought watches in these stores and know how long, if you're really looking at a watch or you're sizing a watch, how long these things can take. So I just kind of smiled, and it's obviously this not gentleman's fault. And I said, no, sir, that's not going to happen. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I left. And you knew from the text how annoyed I was with just the whole fact. Calgary, I don't know if Calgary Jewelry is affiliated in any way with this Omega boutique, but they have a fairly decent Omega selection, and I can walk into their store anytime. There's never, there's security there, but there's not a gatekeeper that's stopping me from going to the store and look around. And, I had so many thoughts on this yesterday that, I'm not going to do a 45-minute diatribe like my poor wife listened to. I'll just sum it up and say this. I appreciate that you want to have customer service representatives with people looking around the store. I really do get that, because the real way to sell a watch is to get it on someone's wrist. But if you don't have enough staff in the store to handle the foot traffic in the mall that you're in, somebody's made a bad decision. Somebody's, are you going to have more staff some days? Perhaps, I don't quite understand. But I think when you're keeping people out of your store, you've got a problem with your business model. I'm somebody that you heard me mention, I don't want to oversell this by any stretch of the imagination, but you and I have sway over our friends. And if one of our friends had $10,000 to spend on a watch, chances are they're going to speak to us before they go shopping. Does that mean I would tell them not to buy Omega because I felt that this store handled their business poorly? Not at all. I mean, there's definitely not my feeling like that at all. Having said that, there's a Rolex store, like I said, 200 feet away. And the people in there are really nice. I've been in there a few times. I'm on waiting lists for certain watches that I'll never get because I've never bought any jewelry at the store, and I know how kind of know how the game works. But at the same time, it's sort of like there's not and I want to make this very clear to anybody at Omega or Swatch Group. There's not a single Omega on a single waiting list that wouldn't be with the next stock order that I want to get from Omega. So when you stop me from going in that store and looking at that product that's for sale today, that I could walk home today, and you keep me out of the store, I'm walking down the mall, and yeah, there's a waiting list, but I'm walking down the mall and walking into that Rolex dealer, and I'm looking at their Tudors, I'm looking at their Breitlings, I'm looking at their Cartiers, I'm looking at their Longines, right? You've let me walk out of your store without even looking at the product. Worst, terrible business model. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I mean, so obviously I wasn't there. I don't really have a lot to add to the story. I guess maybe my 2 cents is, from an outside perspective, is I can understand they're trying to sell an experience. They want somebody to greet you at the door, bring you in, hold your hand, like you said, right?
Yeah.
I totally get all that, but you've gone and created the complete opposite of the experience you were trying to, because now, like you said, you've not even let me in the store.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, obviously I lived in Calgary for, over 20 years. I know the mall you're talking about. Like, you don't go open in Chinook Mall unless you're ready. And if you're not ready, like, what are you doing? And it's just, it's unfortunate because your first experience, and man, you were excited yesterday morning. Like, I got your text. You're like, we're going out. And you're like, I haven't even told the wife we're going to stop there yet. But, you were so pumped. And then, and then it's radio silence for a few hours. And then it's like, man, it's a lot of curse words, and you're like pretty worked up. But it's such an unfortunate experience, right? Because you were so excited. And like you said, you just wanted to see it for nothing else, right?
Yeah. And the other side of that is the way I look at it, maybe a casual person wouldn't care, but there's part of me, I can have a little bit of an attitude problem. I can see that. And there is part of me that, especially if I was like a casual person, just kind of wanted to go glance in that store and see what was in there and had that experience, my answer would be fudge those guys. Like, I would never, and I'm somebody, if I say I'm never coming back, I am never coming back. I'm not saying that to the Omega Boutique, but I would say, like, get it together, because, like, say you and I know a lot of people, and it was a bad first experience. Like, it was, I certainly didn't have that experience down at Calgary Jewelry looking at their Omegas. In fact, I was down in Miami and had a way better experience going into the Patek Philippe store, going into the Tag Heuer store, and going into the A. Long and Zone store, where a guy took out his $135,000 American Zeitwerk and let me touch it, and these guys won't even let me in their shop. I'm sorry, man. That's just piss poor. That's just not good.
No, it's definitely a problem. And I mean, I'm going to be honest. If you want me to wait in line for anything, you better have a damn good reason as to why I'm waiting in line, like maybe Disneyland or something. But I tell you, like, if you expect me to stand in a lineup to wait to come in to buy your product with my hard-earned money, I'm not waiting in line, man. I'm not. No. I'm just not.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I'm not coming back necessarily after that experience. I don't know how I'd feel. If you want an Omega, maybe, but like you said, it's not like that's the only Omega store in your city where you can go get a watch.
Well, and I mean, I can go on Chrono 24, and I know what people say about it being the wild, wild west. And to anybody watching, be very careful if you're doing any shopping on Chrono 24. You buy the watch seller, not the watch itself. Be very careful. But I could have that watch in my hand in 48 hours. Like, I don't get it. A brand new watch coming from somewhere else within 48 hours. I may pay a little bit on, maybe on the exchange or something. Having said that, it's not like Omegas, are known for trading above retail in most cases, unless you get a real hot piece, that's kind of hot out of the gate, like the way Speedmaster was.
Yeah.
So to me, it was just a really weird kind of just an odd way to handle the business. And it was for somebody that's a watch collector and a nut and a freak, maybe this is my own ego talking, but it's like, we are the people you want on side. We are the people that you want to give that experience to in your store. Don't make it hard for us to just get in there and have a look around your store, especially for the everyman that, maybe, is wearing his entry level Casio Timex, but sees your watch and then, that becomes his aspirational piece.
Mm-hmm.
But you red velveted the door, like literally a red velvet, like a bouncer at a nightclub.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not trying to say I'm a somebody. I'm nobody. I'm just a guy walking down the mall, and I get that you probably don't want 200 people in your store either. I understand having some control over it, but yeah, I mean, if you're asking me to wait in line to come in and buy your product, there's nothing in this world I want that bad. Usually. Well,
and I mean, to tell you the truth, I kind of take the same. I'm going to change a little bit and stop hacking on the Omega store here because for maybe this is an anomaly, right? But I feel the same way about the people. You hear the stuff about Rolex dealers where if you're on the waiting list for an Oyster Perpetual or something, they're going to look at your buying history at the jewelry store as to whether or not you get that watch, or where you might be sitting as far as you might be at the top of that waiting list numerically, but your buying history at that store is going to have a larger impact than you realize. I do see the store's perspective on that a tiny bit. What I really see as a consumer, I say, here's what I'm asking you to get me. If you can get me the thing I really want, we can talk about the rest of this stuff in your store. But if you want me to buy the rest of this crap to get the one thing I really want, we're already finished. Get me the thing I'm asking for, prove you can get me what I want, and then I'll trust you when it comes to the rest of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they're saying, you got to develop a relationship with the AD. I'm the customer. How about the dealer develops a relationship with me? If I'm trying to, especially with Rolex, like if I'm trying to give you entry level $8,000 and you think I should kiss your arse to get there, we have a very different, consumer supplier philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not a fan of that. You and I have talked about that. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. But
now to be fair though, and I'll say this, Rolex doesn't control, Rolex doesn't own Maison Berks or J. Vere, who are the Rolex dealers in Calgary. They don't own those stores. So it's not Rolex themselves playing that game. It's the authorized dealers. And again, J. Vere, Maison Berks, I'm not saying these are things you're doing. I'm saying these are common perceptions within the watch collecting industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't sue me.
Yeah, we'll learn quickly what parts of the show we might have to edit out and what parts we won't.
Yeah. Well,
that's funny.
I just think, you hear about it all the time and the gatekeeping within the watch industry, and I'd never noticed it, right? Like I would always, whenever I've been to the Rolex dealers in Calgary, they've always been really nice to me. That doesn't mean they're going to sell me anything, but they're warm and receptive. There's not, a bouncer at the door with a red velvet rope.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I just want to be treated like maybe you see me as an actual potential customer that matters. Whether I will be or not. I'd like to be treated with the respect I feel that everyone should be given automatically from the word go, right?
Well, and right away you'll see my indignance, because as somebody that doesn't just understand watches, the business of watches is a thing for me. Like ultimately, if I thought I could make a decent living at it, I want to sell watches. Like it's obviously my passion. Having said that, I also know that year over year, last year, Swatch Group's sales were down by over 12%, which, Omega falls under that umbrella. So I think they're one of the brands that are kind of keeping the Swatch Group from maybe, dropping more than 12%. But at the same time, it's kind of like when your company as a whole has declining revenue, perhaps really look at the way your business model is operating. I think, getting into the mall and getting more access is a way to start, to increase those numbers. But putting it so you can only have 2 people in your store at a time, that's just bad management. Just bad management.
Yeah. I imagine it's a fairly decent sized store too.
Well, I mean, it wasn't massive, but at the same time, it wasn't, it wasn't like if you kind of had you could probably let 10 people comfortably browse through that store comfortably.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just, and if I want a piece, I'll wait for the person to finish what they're doing, or I'll make an appointment to come back if I really want to look at something. But I just, it doesn't matter what store it is. I don't think making people line up to get in, my wife said, well, maybe it creates that exclusivity. Like, you hear about these bars that have a bouncer at the door and a huge lineup. And then when you look inside, there's nobody in the bar because they're just trying to make it look like the bar's too full. And it creates, kind of a perception of that exclusivity. But to me, it's like Rolex does that because they make 1.2 million watches every year and sells 1.2 million watches every year.
Yeah.
Omega produces somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million watches every year, which is a gigantic chasm in the reporting of the numbers. And there's not a waiting list for any of them. So, let's just realize what we're doing. Take a look at the marketing, slow down your price increases and really look at who you're trying to market to. Because I'm not a rich guy. I'm not buying $10,000 watches on the daily. Having said that, I'm somebody that if I save for a while can buy a $10,000 watch, right? Yeah. Like we're looking 2 years, but I can save enough money.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll muster up the willingness to go try it again in the near future.
Guarantee I'm going back in,
which I know you will, and hopefully it's a better experience. Yeah.
Well, that's why, I'm saying I didn't have a great experience, but at no point have you heard me say I'm never going back or, I'll never buy an Omega. That's not my attitude at all. I will say this to Omega that I did look at one of your watches. I had an opportunity to buy the James Bond 60th anniversary Speedmaster. And well, quite frankly, you need to make a better bracelet that fits nicely up against the case, not a big gap between the case and the band. Clean up that finishing a bit when you get to that price point. Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. They'll get right on that and get yours shipped and ready for you.
Oh, they'll probably email me, ask me if I have anything else.
Yeah.
Any other quick tips they could run with?
Yeah. While we're at it, what else can we change?
Yeah. Omega actually, they wake up in the morning just looking for the opinions of duds like me on their product, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I got to tell you, these conversations go by so fast.
Yeah,
it's incredible. One thing leading up to us, getting ready to do a podcast was, man, can we sit here, week after week, talk for an hour or more or whatever, and kind of, nail these episodes down. But I tell you, they fly by fast.
And I think next week, last week we spent a lot of time on smartwatches and we talked, some big brands. This week we spent most of the time talking about big brands. So I think next week we're going to, let's spend some time and, people please join the conversation, throw out if there's anything you want us to talk about in the comment section. But I think the next show we're going to focus maybe a little more on the micro brands that we sort of know and love. And because we both have had very, very good experiences within the watch community. Not just buying, but getting to know these micro brand watch producers. And I think that, in the watch space, everybody knows Rolex and Omega and, all these big names, but, it's time that more people know about the Zellos and the Duckworth Prestex and the,
second
just
hour.
One more watch. Second
Gotta
hour.
throw out second hour because, man, I'm loving my second hour, and that's going to be a watch I'm going to wear here soon. I think I already got my watch picked out for the next episode because, I definitely wanted to get into some more micro brands, and it is a micro brand, and it's one of my favorite watches, and so I think that's where I will end up next week. And I think, that's a good place to start. And definitely if you have brands that, you guys know of that want to share with us or get thoughts and opinions on, like, by all means, let us know. And then just, I thought maybe we'd kind of talk about some of the things we're working on for future. I kind of mentioned in my video the other day, thanking everyone for helping with the launch and all the support and everything. I mentioned that we were working on some quality upgrades for our video show on YouTube. This is where the IT guy, Alex, has to stick his tail between his legs and go, well, we had it all figured out. And then we got ready to start and we had some technical difficulties.
Yeah. I'm blaming a lack of user-friendly on that one.
Well, I don't know. We'll figure out what happened. I don't know what happened. I'll do some investigating and we'll see what we can work out. So we haven't quite figured out the audio and video, haven't perfected it yet, but we're going to get there. And in the meantime, we're just happy to keep talking. So that stuff will come. So I kind of made promises that I can't, that I'm not necessarily keeping, but you'll get to know me. I talk, I say stuff all the time that I can't back up.
Well, to be fair to Alex, there was no promise. It was, we'll try this and see if it works. It
True
didn't
enough.
work.
True
Yeah,
enough. Yeah.
It's the software. Always blame the software.
Yeah. But aside from, how we do things, we're hoping that our conversations are enjoyable. We're working on, setting up some conversations with some guests, hopefully in some coming weeks here. We've got some thoughts and ideas that we'd like to get some guests on with us, do some watch talk, get some perspective from people, and just, continue to work on our stuff, getting better.
Well, and definitely highlighting here in the next couple of months, vendors, as well as, we hope to talk to Jason from the Vancouver Timepiece Show, because that's coming up hot in April. We'll be out at that show as well, April 24th, 26th. So if anybody's going to be in Vancouver for that, definitely get in touch with us. And love to meet up, maybe shoot some content or drink down a beer and just have a good BS session, because we're really looking forward to this will be our second year at the Vancouver Timepiece Show, and we're really looking forward to it. So, keep an eye out for those episodes as well.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, that'll be good gearing up to that. We'll hopefully have some guests that will be about the Vancouver show leading up to that. So yeah, we got a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts that we're going to keep plugging away at. Again, please leave comments on all the platforms that you're listening or watching on. Hey, guess what? I know what our Instagram handle is this week.
I triple dog dare you to try and spit that out this time.
It's WYTA Pod. That's what it is.
Okay, how many times did you practice that this week?
It's on a post-it note stuck to the side of my monitor.
My man.
That's how much confidence I had in myself.
Again, all I hear is Joe Dirt, I'm cool.
Yeah,
and then Kid Rock, no, you're not.
Right? Yeah.
Oh,
I'm constantly that dog sitting in the fire going, "It's fine. It's fine."
Yeah, seems warm here.
Yeah, and we also have an email for any of you that actually want to type out an email to us. What you talking about? pod@gmail.com. If you feel like sending us an email or want to shoot us some pictures of your wrist, what you're wearing today, we'd love to see what everyone's wearing. Just want to keep getting to know the community and building, that those conversations, and we'll go from there.
That watch you talking about pod email, it's longer than a Dutch person's last name.
It really is long. And it's funny because when we set that up, we were just like, whew, it's a lot to type, but it kind of rolls off the tongue way easier than WYTA pod. I don't know why, but yeah, what you talking about pod@gmail.com. Yeah. It kind of flows.
Yeah. You know what really rolls off the tongue? WTF.
Yeah, that's probably what most people are thinking during this hour that they spend with us, but
absolutely, buddy. And on that note, have a great week, pal.
Yeah, have a great week. Thanks for your stories. Thanks for everyone listening. Appreciate all the likes and subscriptions, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
And slow down, we're out of time. Same watch talk next time.